For centuries, the Galactic Empire ruled the stars with power so absolute that even the thought of rebellion seemed like madness. Planets obeyed without question, species surrendered without a fight, and any resistance was crushed before it began. Their ships filled the skies like dark clouds, their armies moved like storms, and no enemy had lasted more than a few days. The Empire had grown used to fear, to dominance, and to being untouchable. So when news came of a newly discovered species called humans from a small blue planet named Earth, the Empire barely noticed. Humans had only one star system. Their technology was old, unrefined, and unimpressive. They had no trade routes, no alliances, no known presence beyond a few nearby moons. The Empire's leaders assumed they would be like all the others, easy to conquer, easy to forget. To test them, the Council sent a small battle group of 7 ships to the edge of human-controlled space. It was meant to be a quick scan, nothing more, a simple show of power to force Earth into submission without even firing a shot. But when the fleet arrived near the Kuiper Belt, something strange happened. Their scans didn't detect any large cities or military bases. There were no planetary shields, no defense satellites, not even warning beacons. It was as if Earth wasn't prepared at all. Commander Varnus, who led the mission, believed it was a trap. He ordered caution, thinking perhaps the humans were hiding something. But most of his crew laughed at the idea. "They're primitives," one of the officers said. "We'll be home before the sun sets." That's when the first human ship appeared. It was small, about half the size of a destroyer, but it didn't run or send signals. It just moved straight toward them. Slowly. Fearlessly. Varnus gave the order to scan it, but before the sensors could lock on, the human ship disappeared from their screens, then reappeared on the opposite side of their formation. The crew panicked. How had it moved that fast? Before they could react, one of the Empire's frigates exploded. No warning. No incoming fire. Just a sudden, violent flash, and then debris. Varnus shouted commands, but another ship went dark, its lights vanishing in an instant. The human vessel kept circling them, quiet and controlled, like a predator testing its prey. Finally, the Empire's ships opened fire, filling the space around them with beams, missiles, and plasma blasts. But none of it hit. The human ship danced through the chaos with perfect timing, slipping between attacks as if it knew the Empire's tactics before they even launched them. And then it struck again, this time from inside the formation. No one saw it enter. No one saw how it got there. One by one, the Empire's mighty warships began to fall. Varnus ordered a retreat, something no Imperial commander had ever done during a scouting mission. But even that proved difficult. The human ship followed them like a shadow, disabling engines and communication systems with pinpoint accuracy. In the end, only Varnus's ship made it out, limping back toward Imperial space with fires burning and systems failing. His final message was short, almost whispered, filled with confusion and fear that wasn't even their army. The transmission cut out. Across the Empire, silence followed. The Council couldn't believe what they had heard. Could one ship really destroy an entire fleet? Was it luck? A fluke? Or was there something about these humans that the galaxy didn't understand yet? High Command reviewed the data. They studied every second of the battle, and what they found was worse than they imagined. The human vessel didn't have superior weapons or stronger shields. In fact, their technology was indeed outdated. But their movements, their decisions, their timing, it was too perfect. It was as if the pilot knew exactly what the Empire would do at every moment. The conclusion was terrifying. It wasn't human technology that was dangerous. It was the humans themselves. Their minds, their unpredictability, their willingness to take risks that no other species would even consider. The Council didn't speak of the incident publicly. They didn't want to cause panic. But deep inside the Empire's war chambers, the fear had started to grow. If a single human ship could do that much damage, what would happen if they sent 10? Or 100? Or an entire fleet? Or worse? What if that wasn't even their real military? What if that ship was just a test? A scout? The Empire had always seen itself as the peak of power. But now, for the first time in living memory, they faced an enemy they couldn't understand. And without understanding, there could be no control. Earth remained silent. No declarations. No threats. No demands. Just silence, and that silence was louder than war drums. The Empire had made its first contact with humanity, expecting an easy victory. But what they received was a terrifying message, written not in words, but in wreckage and fear. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but something had changed forever. A storm was coming, and its name was humanity. The Empire could not forget the message of Commander Varnus. The words still echoed through their war rooms like a warning from a nightmare that wasn't even their army. The Council had tried to remain calm, tried to treat it as an isolated incident, but the fear was already spreading. Across star systems, whispers about the humans grew louder. Who were they really? What were they hiding? How could one small vessel take down a fleet of Imperial warships? The Empire decided it needed answers, and fast. High Command sent a larger, more advanced fleet this time. It was not a scouting mission anymore. This was a show of dominance. 17 warships, including 2 dreadnoughts, set course for the edge of human space. The commanders were chosen carefully experienced, ruthless, and loyal. Their orders were clear: approach Earth and demand surrender. If the humans resisted, they were to be wiped out. Many within the Empire believed this would be the end of the human mystery, that a powerful strike would crush their courage. But there were others, more cautious, who had seen the battle footage from Varnus's ship and knew that this wouldn't be easy. As the fleet entered human space, everything seemed quiet. There were no signs of defense platforms, no ships waiting in orbit, just empty space and scattered moons. Some of the commanders began to relax, convinced that the humans were afraid to face them. They laughed over the comms and prepared their message of surrender. But then, the silence broke. One by one, human ships appeared, not large fleets, but single vessels, spaced apart across the darkness like stars blinking into existence. There were only 5 of them, but each looked different, unique, customized, and oddly shaped. They moved with no formation, no signal, and no announcement. Yet they advanced as if they owned the space they floated in. The Empire sent warnings, threatened destruction, demanded identification, but the humans didn't respond. Instead, they opened fire. It wasn't just powerful, it was precise. The humans didn't try to destroy everything at once. They picked targets, carefully: engines, communications, control towers. They disabled ships without wasting a shot. One Imperial cruiser lost control and drifted helplessly. Another had its weapon system shut down by a strange, unseen pulse. The humans were not just fighting, they were studying the enemy in real time, learning and adapting faster than any AI the Empire had ever built. Imperial commanders tried to respond, to outmaneuver them, but every strategy was countered. Every surprise was met with a deadlier one. It was like the humans could see the future, predicting each move before it happened. And still, there were only 5 of them. Desperation grew. The Imperial fleet launched a coordinated attack with every ship firing at once, an unstoppable wave of plasma meant to burn through anything. But the human ships didn't try to fight it. They disappeared. Not cloaked, not warped, just gone. Seconds later, they reappeared behind the fleet. What followed was chaos. The dreadnoughts, the pride of the Empire, fell in under 3 minutes. One of them exploded from the inside. Its own reactor turned against it. Another was boarded silently, its entire crew knocked unconscious with gas before they could react. The humans didn't just destroy, they humiliated. The Imperial fleet tried to flee, but the exits were already blocked. The humans had predicted the retreat routes and set traps that triggered as the ships attempted to escape. Only 2 damaged vessels made it out, and one of them lost all memory logs due to a strange virus that erased everything except one corrupted voice message. They were smiling while they fought. Back at the Empire's capital, panic spread like fire. These weren't random victories. These were signs of preparation. The humans weren't reacting to the Empire's attacks they had planned for them. Intelligence officers discovered something terrifying. The ships that had attacked weren't military models. They were privately owned crafts-modified freighters, racing ships, even mining vessels. The people who had fought the Empire weren't soldiers. They were civilians, volunteers, hobbyists. That meant the real human military hadn't even arrived. The idea shattered everything the Empire believed. Their enemies had been untrained, unorganized, and still they had achieved what no army in the galaxy had ever done. Some within the Empire suggested surrender, but others, blinded by pride, wanted revenge. A third fleet was proposed this time, massive, fully armed, with thousands of soldiers and advanced AI war systems. But before it could be launched, something happened. A message was received. It was brief, simple, just 2 lines. That was your warning. Next time, we bring the real ones. It was signed by a name unknown to Imperial records, a name that didn't appear on any list of officials or military leaders. It was signed by a student. The council fell silent. The galaxy had changed in just a few days, and no one had seen it coming. For the first time in its long history, the Empire had faced an enemy it could not understand, could not predict, and most terrifying of all, could not defeat. And worse still, they now realized, with cold clarity, that the battle they had just lost shouldn't have even happened. The Empire's capital was suffocating with tension. The losses had been incomprehensible, and the message had shaken the highest levels of command. That was your warning. Next time, we bring the real ones. The words echoed in the halls of the Imperial War Council, leaving an undeniable sense of dread. No one had expected the humans to strike back with such precision, and now they had made it clear that this was just the beginning. Imperial generals and commanders filled the chamber, their faces grim, their expressions betraying fear they had never experienced before. The head of the council, Supreme Commander Saren, stood before them, trying to maintain control of the situation. His voice, usually commanding and full of confidence, now quivered slightly as he addressed the room. The battle reports were clear. The humans are not what we thought. They are not primitives. They are organized, and most terrifying of all, they are unpredictable. He paused, scanning the faces of the room, looking for any sign of doubt. None came. We underestimated them, and now they are preparing for something much worse. The room fell into silence as the officers exchanged glances. There were murmurs of disbelief, but the reality was too clear to ignore. The Empire had been humiliated, and now they were desperate to understand how. One of the senior commanders, General Vale, stood up. His reputation was built on countless victories, and his voice was as sharp as the blade of a weapon. We have to change our strategy. We cannot continue with the same tactics. We need to know everything about them, their technology, their culture, their weaknesses. We need to understand how they think. Commander Kor, known for his intelligence operations, nodded. I've already started gathering data. Their ships are not advanced in the way we thought. They don't have stronger weapons or shields. What they have, though, is something we can't explain. Their movements, their responses, they're always one step ahead. It's as if they already know what we're going to do. Impossible, muttered another officer. No species can predict our tactics that accurately. But Kor shook his head. I don't think it's prediction. I think it's preparation. Their ships are equipped with sensors we don't fully understand, and their pilots, he hesitated, then continued. Their pilots are more than just skilled. They're intuitive. It's like they're reading our movements before we even make them. The room went silent again, the weight of Kor's words sinking in. It was clear that no one had expected this level of insight from a race that was still considered a backwater species by the Empire. Saren frowned, his brow furrowing in thought. What are you suggesting, Kor? That we have underestimated them so badly that they are outsmarting us at every turn? Kor hesitated but then stood firm. I believe they are capable of adapting faster than we ever thought possible. Their ability to respond to our attacks in real time is beyond anything we have seen. And if they have something we don't understand, some hidden advantage, it's only a matter of time before they use it against us again. Supreme Commander Saran's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. The fear in the room was palpable now, but he refused to show weakness. "So what do we do now?" he demanded. "Do we just sit back and wait for them to strike again? Do we surrender?" A murmur of disagreement swept through the room. The Empire had never surrendered, not to anyone, and it wasn't about to start now. General Vale stepped forward, his tone forceful. "No. We are the Empire. We don't surrender. But we need a new plan. We need to send a message. A real one. We must show them that we are still in control." The room was divided. Some commanders wanted to retaliate immediately with a full-scale assault. Others argued for a more cautious approach, gathering more information, analyzing the humans further before risking everything in another battle. The debate grew heated, but all the while, one question lingered in the minds of the leaders. What did the humans want? Why had they attacked the Empire with such precision, with such deadly efficiency, and then retreated only to send a single, ominous message? No one had the answer. Kor, who had been silently observing, finally spoke again. "I've looked through their communications. They don't appear to be interested in territory or resources, not in the way we understand. They're different from any species we've encountered. They act like they're trying to prove something, like they want to show us their strength, not to take what's ours." "Show us their strength?" Vale repeated, incredulous. "But why? We've barely even acknowledged them until now." Kor's eyes darkened as he considered the implications. "I don't think this is about us. I think it's about something larger. A larger conflict. Perhaps with other enemies we don't know about. But whatever their reasons, we need to be ready. If we don't understand them soon, we'll lose everything." Saran finally spoke again, his voice low but resolute. "We will launch another offensive, but it will be different this time. We will learn everything we can about them, about their ships, their tactics, their motivations. And we will do it carefully. If we underestimate them again, it could be our last mistake." But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in the air. No one in that room truly believed they understood what they were up against. The humans had already shattered the Empire's confidence. The fear was too real. And the question that gnawed at them all, in the deepest corners of their minds, was this: what if the humans weren't even trying their hardest yet? As the debriefing ended, the commanders left the room, each carrying the heavy weight of uncertainty. The Empire had been shaken to its core, and now, for the first time in centuries, it was facing an enemy whose intentions, capabilities, and next move remained a complete mystery. The humans had sent their warning, and the Empire had no choice but to heed it. There was no going back now. The war had only just begun, and the true test was still ahead. Back on Earth, a different kind of tension filled the air. Humanity had spent centuries watching the stars, waiting for something, anything to happen. They had built their civilizations, their technology, their defenses, but the greatest threat had always come from within. Now, however, Earth was facing an external threat, one from a powerful galactic empire that had just tried to destroy their existence. But humanity was not one to back down. Not anymore. It had taken years of struggle, of surviving wars that seemed impossible to win, of overcoming nature's cruelties and their own limitations, but Earth had survived. And now, with the first signs of intergalactic war, humanity's response was clear: they were ready. President Evelyn Shaw stood at the head of the emergency summit, looking out at the representatives from the military, intelligence agencies, and key scientific advisors. Her face was calm, yet beneath that calmness, she could feel the weight of history bearing down on her. This was no longer a political issue, it was a fight for survival. The Empire's fleet had arrived without warning, and their devastation of the smaller human vessels had been swift. Yet, somehow, the humans had fought back and sent a message that the Empire would not soon forget. A wave of national pride surged across the globe. What if the Empire came back in full force? What if those 5 ships had been just the beginning, a test to see how humanity would react? What if they were underestimated again? These questions were on everyone's mind, but Shaw knew one thing above all: Earth had to show the Empire that it was not afraid, that it had more to offer than just its will to survive. Earth's military, though advanced by human standards, was no match for the full might of the Empire. But humanity had something the Empire didn't understand: its ability to innovate under pressure. In secret laboratories, engineers had already started reverse engineering the alien technology from the ships they had recovered. While many were still trying to understand how the humans had outmaneuvered them, Earth was learning quickly. The weapons systems were not as sophisticated as the Empire had assumed. The true advantage of the human ships was not their tech, but their pilots. The humans had trained in ways the Empire had never considered: strategic thinking, intuition, and adaptability. They did not rely on rigid tactics or predetermined plans. No, they operated on the fly, adjusting to the battle in real time. And that was something the Empire had failed to predict. Shaw's voice broke through the quiet murmur of the summit. "We cannot rely on brute force alone. We will face them again, and this time we will make them understand who we are." The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. Shaw wasn't just a leader, she was a symbol. And she knew that symbol carried weight. She had to convince her people that there was more to humanity than survival instinct, that they had the strength to fight back, to adapt, and, most importantly, to win. "Our scientists are working on a new strategy," Shaw continued. "We will not meet them head-on. Instead, we will meet them with something they cannot predict. A network of fighters, each acting on their own initiative, each capable of adapting faster than any command could dictate. Our strength lies not in our firepower, but in our unity and our willingness to act in the face of the unknown." Behind her, a screen flickered on, displaying a series of holographic simulations. The military advisors exchanged looks, watching as human pilots engaged in unpredictable maneuvers, dodging incoming fire and striking back with calculated precision. "These are our tactics. We will rely on them to outsmart the Empire," Shaw said. "And we will prepare for their next move." It was a gamble, but humanity had no other choice. As the summit continued, the streets of Earth seemed to pulse with energy. People who had never cared for space exploration were now glued to their screens, watching as the news updates streamed in. There were reports of new technologies being developed, new alliances forming, and, most importantly, new hope rising. A message was being sent across the globe. In the weeks that followed, the world watched as military forces mobilized. The message was clear: the Empire might have underestimated Earth, but that was about to change. Earth's response was not just a defense. It was a declaration of war. As fleets were assembled and new weapons were tested, there was a growing sense that humanity was about to do the unthinkable. They would fight back. In secret bases across the globe, teams of engineers worked tirelessly, improving the human ships with every new piece of alien tech they recovered. They didn't have the Empire's resources, but they had something else: creativity. Human ingenuity had always been their greatest strength, and now that strength was being focused on one singular goal: survival. Meanwhile, the Empire continued to watch. They had underestimated humanity before, and they were not about to make the same mistake twice. Intelligence reports from spies and sensors revealed a flurry of activity across Earth. The humans were preparing, and it seemed as if they were planning something bold. There were whispers among the Empire's officers that Earth was creating something: a weapon, a force, something that would change the course of the war. But what was it? No one knew yet. And that uncertainty hung in the air like a dark cloud. Back on Earth, President Shaw's words echoed in the hearts of every citizen: "We are not afraid." But as the days turned into weeks, even she couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease. There were no guarantees. The Empire was vast, its power unmatched. But there was something else, something that Shaw knew deep within her bones. Humanity had survived the impossible before. And it would as the days turned into weeks. Earth's preparations were becoming clearer, not just to its people but to the Empire as well. Humanity had risen in unexpected ways, pulling from centuries of struggle and ingenuity, creating a force that could no longer be ignored. President Evelyn Shaw knew that the time had come. Earth was ready to show the galaxy that they had more to offer than the Empire ever anticipated. For years, the world had been split: factions, disagreements, and fear had held back the true potential of humanity. But the threat from the stars had united them in a way nothing else could. From the moment the first fleet of the Empire had set its sights on Earth, something shifted. People who had once been divided by borders and ideologies now stood together, forging a new sense of identity. Military leaders, scientists, and civilians alike worked tirelessly, blending their knowledge to create something entirely new. And soon, Earth had something that the Empire didn't, a weapon of unimaginable power, but not in the way one might expect. It wasn't the size of their fleets, nor the power of their weapons. It was humanity's adaptability, the one thing that had always been underestimated. Earth's new fleet was not a direct challenge to the Empire's overwhelming strength. Instead, it was a new type of warfare: stealth, speed, and agility, honed through years of evolving technology and tactics. Human ingenuity had found a way to blend recovered alien technology with their own, making it not just a match for the Empire, but a step ahead. The Empire had relied on their sheer numbers, their vast fleets, and their rigid tactics. But humanity had learned how to use the very technology that had been meant to destroy them, turning it into something the Empire couldn't predict. As Earth's new ships moved through space, they were silent, their hulls designed to blend into the darkness of space. The Empire's sensors couldn't pick them up. The humans had learned how to disappear, to move like shadows in the vastness of the stars. The first attack came suddenly. A fleet of human ships, small but deadly, emerged from the darkness and struck with devastating precision. The Empire's larger ships were caught off guard, and their counterattacks were disorganized. For the first time, humanity's unpredictable tactics had worked. The Empire's commanders scrambled to respond, but the damage was done. The human fleet had made its mark, showing that they were no longer just survivors, they were a force to be reckoned with. President Shaw watched the first reports of the attack with a sense of quiet satisfaction. She knew that this was just the beginning. The world was still vulnerable, the war far from over, but Earth had proven that it was not simply an easy target. And as the news of humanity's victory spread, a new sense of hope flooded every corner of the globe. People from all walks of life rallied to the cause, offering their skills, their knowledge, and their courage. The governments, once fractured, now stood united under a single banner: humanity's survival. As the next phase of the war loomed, Earth's fleet began to grow. The human ships, now equipped with new weapons and technology, were ready to face the Empire's might once more. But there was something deeper at play. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for something more. A new power was rising not from the weapons they wielded, but from the unity and determination they had found in themselves. Earth had turned the impossible into a reality. What had once seemed like a distant dream was now something the Empire had to face. No longer just a collection of nations, Earth had become a singular force, a force that could not be broken. And as the war intensified, the message was clear: humanity would no longer be seen as weak. The Empire's leadership had underestimated them once, and they wouldn't make the same mistake again. They had seen what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. They had seen the rise of a new power. Earth was no longer just a target, it was a contender. The next battle would be different. There was no more fear. No more uncertainty. Humanity had found its strength, and it was ready to rise to meet the Empire's full force. The first victory had been a message, a statement to the galaxy. But now, the true war was about to begin. And Earth's new power would make sure that the Empire would never forget who they were up against.